What's the biz, everybody? It's your boy Baker Maker, aka Densley, and I'm here to give you some true shit.
So, when you think of horror slasher icons, you probably think of characters like Freddy, Jason, Michael, hell, even Chucky. Many even have regarded the first Terminator movie as a horror film, despite the sequels leaning more towards being straight up action flicks. The Terminator is a thrilling science fiction film about survival, but because of its story and tone, it could even be considered a horror movie. It closely followed the template of slasher films of the early 1980s while adding a time travel twist. Well, there's a certain character whom I feel, while their story might not necessarily be classified as a horror story, it definitely has certain elements of them in the role he plays. They play in said story. The character I'm referring to is the main antagonist of the 1997 classic video game Final Fantasy VII. To quote Wind Mouse Handpan of Game Facts, I think Final Fantasy VII could almost be considered a pseudo horror RPG. Honestly, I mean, for the most part, it's not really horrific, but the general flow of things is kind of like a horror movie. How they typically have intense, creepy moments, then break away from the creepy for a while before building up to the next big scare. FF7 is similar in that it throws unexpectedly creepy moments and areas at you periodically before returning to a standard JRPG atmosphere, although it's still darker than many, for a few hours until it suddenly tosses another creepy area or moment at you unexpectedly for a JRPG at least. Granted, most of them are on the first disc, but still. End quote. Today, it's so easy to write the game off by saying its graphics have become outdated, but I think it's important to keep in mind the fact that for its time, the graphics as well as its gaming mechanics were considered revolutionary. Besides, I constantly see a lot of modern gamers being able to look past the character models being polygons and allowing the gameplay, the music, and the story to keep them captivated. These are just a few of many examples as to why FF7 is still one of the most influential games ever made. The game that introduced many players to Final Fantasy and to JRPGs as a whole, brings a whole trunkload of nightmare-inducing imagery and aspects, with so many moments feeling as if they came straight out of a cosmic horror or psychological thriller story. Many of you who are familiar with the Final Fantasy franchise as a whole might argue that FF7 isn't the only one to have some events that feel like they're straight out of a horror movie. And yes, you would be correct, but from most of the Final Fantasy fans I've talked to, many of them would agree that there's very few games in the series that does it better than FF7 in terms of scaring the piss out of the gamers, or just flat out creeping them out. Again, FF7's story isn't what I'd consider a part of the horror genre, but I'd be lying if I said the game doesn't borrow certain aspects of it, especially when it contains to as a character and his role in the game. In order for me to explain why, I'm gonna have to go into some heavy spoilers for a 25-year-old game. We good? Good. There is a lot of build-up in the OG game before. Okay. I'm gonna stop now. I'm not gonna be doing that the whole video, but there's a lot of build-up in the OG game before Sephiroth is first seen. Throughout the first portion of the game, which much like the 2020 FF7 remake game in its entirety, mostly consists in the city of Midgar. For this part in the story, we do not see Sephiroth at all, which is a huge contrast to the direction the remake decided to take. We do get a few moments mentioning his name here and there from different characters throughout the Midgar portion, but we don't even know what he looks like, nor much of Cloud's relation to this guy, leaving a huge amount of mystery surrounding this character. Each time he does get brought up in a conversation, the scene never gives away too much info, but leaves you intrigued enough to want to learn more about this Sephiroth fellow. One moment describes him as a great first-class soldier, and another states him murdering Tifa's dad. For this portion of the game, the Shinra company is treated as the main threat to the protagonist. Nearly every central character in the story has having to deal with its tyrannical rule over Midgar, or have been negatively affected by Shinra. In fact, a lot of the horrific elements in the game are thanks to the terrible experiments done by Shinra's scientists, specifically Hojo, whom, in my opinion, is the biggest scum in the whole game. Yet he has all the resources for his horrific experiments, thanks to people like President Shinra sponsoring, and all that stuff. Despite the game's main hero's best efforts, they failed to stop the evil company's plan to drop the Sector 7 plate, which crushed the town and killed Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, along with tons of innocent civilians. They even managed to kidnap Aerith, which prompted Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa to go rescue their friend from Shinra's headquarters, only for them to eventually get captured and locked up themselves. Once they tried escaping after saving Aerith. Like I said, up to this point in the OG, Sephiroth has only gotten a few mentions, but never makes an appearance, which leads us to the scene I feel treats Sephiroth as a monster from a horror film the best, the blood trail scene. After Cloud and the others wake up from their sleep, you, the player, see your jail door open. The haunting feeling of seeing red blood and dead bodies as you follow the trail, fighting weirder monsters, just to find the president with a sword through his back, with the surprise of Cloud and Tifa, who recognize the sword and knows exactly who it belongs to. When we find President Shinra's body, Palmer swears he saw Sephiroth claiming that Shinra would never have the promised land. It is very clear that everybody is afraid of this mysterious person. And the whole time this is going on, a very creepy-ass song is playing in the background, adding an extra layer of the horror factor to this scene. It's fittingly titled Trail of Blood, composed by Nobu Uematsu. So, as much as I did enjoy the FF7 remake, I do agree with those who felt like the remake did not do this whole scene justice. I mean, sure, we still got a really great rendition of the music, but thanks to what I can only assume was because of censorship, instead of getting red blood spreaded across the floors and dead bodies throughout the building, all we got was purple goo instead, which is implied to have come from Genova's head, which a Sephiroth clone took with him. And instead of walking into Shinra's the Shinra main office with a dead president, the president is still alive, only for us to actually see him get killed by Sephiroth's blade on screen, making this version of the events significantly less scary. Granted, we do get to witness one of the Sephiroth clones transform into a Genova Dreamweaver, which of itself, along with the boss fight, was very creepy. But going back to the OG, once Cloud and the company had left Midgar and found a place to relax and calm, Cloud tells the party who exactly Sephiroth is and why he's a much bigger threat than even the Shinra company that created him in the first place. During Cloud's flashback, we got to see how this once aloof yet respected war hero turned into a murderous, ruthless, and vengeful lunatic with a god complex. He would go on to destroy Nibelheim, setting the town on fire and killing many townspeople before returning to the reactor to claim Genova's remains. We never actually see him do this. So I think it would be cool. I would really want for Square Enix to maybe, I don't know, release a novel or an OVA detailing exactly what he did to those townspeople. Giving us a scene of Sephiroth slashing innocent people during this event would make for a really cool short horror film or novel. You know, it would be cool. It'd be very gruesome, but cool. This would also include witnessing him kill Cloud's mom for the first time in any official FF7 material, and hearing her last words to her son as implied by the remake. So while we didn't get any of that, we did get to witness the aftermath of it. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the OG or even the version from the Advent Children film. Just the imagery of Sephiroth surrounded by and slowly walking through the very same flames that he caused is still chilling to witness. While One Winged Angel is definitely one of, if not the most iconic song in FF7's soundtrack, in the game, it's actually only used once, and that was in the Safer Sephiroth boss fight. Despite that, it's commonly considered Sephiroth's theme song, but in actuality, it's not his only one. In fact, the one that is used the most frequently whenever Sephiroth does make an appearance in the game, and the one I think fits perfectly for the horror aesthetic, it is Those Chosen by the Planet. It has a creepy vibe to it, and it's even used for the first time during the flashback. But I think it was used perfectly during Sephiroth's descent into villainy, which he gives his speech in the Shinra manner, as it matched well with the tone of the scene, as well as both the song and the scene itself is slowly building up to the part where things start to really pick up. Up until this point, we only hear the ominous chiming bells and beating drums. It's only when Sephiroth says, "Out of my way, I'm going to see my mother," then leaves the manor is when we hear the choir chants with some rising guitar strings, which is easily the best part of the song. And yes, the song continues playing as we witness the town of Nibelheim in flames and Sephiroth watching right before heading to the Mako reactor to go meet his supposed mother, Genova, for the first time. Each time this song plays, it sends a chill down my spine, because I know some shit's about to go down. So in a way, you could technically consider this to be Sephiroth's true theme song. With that said, in terms of FF7 songs in general, I still prefer One Winged Angel over this one. Now, sometime after the Nibelheim flashback, the players do encounter a Midgar Zolom and is forced to fight it, and has proven to be an extremely difficult to defeat for many players. And because of this, the game does give the player ways to avoid fighting this monster, either by riding a chocobo, which is fast enough to outrun it, or doing it on foot if the player is precise. Again, it's possible to defeat the Midgar Zolom, but just know that it won't be easy, and you'll need to do a lot of leveling up if you even hope to stand a chance against this thing. Regardless of what you end up doing, once the player traverses the swamp for the first time, you'll encounter a one-time field location named Martius, where a Zolom is impaled on a tree, leading the party to speculate the feat was done by Sephiroth. Basically, this is the game's way of saying that at this point in the story, you are nowhere near Sephiroth's level, especially if you did this effortlessly. Which, after knowing what we already know about this dude and the feats he's already accomplished so far, would not surprise me. Which further adds to the terror of Sephiroth, because we know we will eventually have to fight and beat this guy to finish the game. And at this point, much like Cloud and the rest of the party members themselves, you, the party, are most likely wondering to yourselves, how the fuck are we gonna do that? And to add to my point of Sephiroth being considered a horror villain, his character was even inspired by a horror classic. When the team behind Final Fantasy VII Remake sat down for an interview with a Square Enix blog, they received a question asking why they decided to change Sephiroth's introduction. And in response, producer Katase reiterated the inspiration behind Sephiroth's character. According to Katase, Steven Spielberg's hit movie Jaws inspired Sephiroth. Katase enjoyed the way the movie handled the shark. He liked how it didn't reveal the monster right off the bat, and instead built it up as this terrifying presence through indirect elements such as referrals made by the characters. Katase took the same approach with Sephiroth when it came to the original Final Fantasy VII, and the reason why the team didn't use the same method again in Final Fantasy VII Remake is actually quite simple. Sephiroth is just too famous a character now. The original game had the luxury of introducing FF7's cast with a clean slate. No one no one playing the game knew who the characters were. So it could build Sephiroth up the same way Jaws did the shark. But now Sephiroth's an anonymity is gone. Everyone knows who he is. Even people who've never played FF7 until Remake. So trying to build him up by hiding him, as Katase puts it, wouldn't work. So Remake didn't bother. Now, I do sort of understand that mindset, but I do feel like there is another reason as to why the developers went the route they did for Sephiroth in Remake. While some might be quick to just believe the much simpler and corporate reason, which is because Sephiroth is arguably the most iconic character in the FF7 series, and it wouldn't make much sense from a marketing perspective to have the first game in this FF7 Remake project to not have him appear at all. While yes, that could be one of the reasons, I think there's another reason which I feel makes the most sense now. I had actually discussed what the reasoning was in a previous video of mine when I was reviewing the FF7 Remake. I'll leave a link to said video in the description below if you're interested. But going back to what Katase's description of the shark from Jaws, it pretty much matches up to how Sephiroth was used for the FF7 story back in 1997. And while he may not appear in the game that much, whenever he did appear, he made shit happen. I honestly don't think there was ever a scene that he appeared in that game that ever felt wasted. Every Sephiroth appearance mattered. In fact, his most iconic moment, along with the Nibelheim incident, was him killing Aerith by stabbing the poor girl with his legendary Masamune sword. Yes, technically it was Jenova who did the deed in the form of Sephiroth, but it was Sephiroth's will controlling Jenova while his real body was sealed in the northern crater. So I definitely consider that a Sephiroth moment. So in conclusion, I wouldn't necessarily classify FF7 as a horror video game. It's more of a cyberpunk adventure role-playing game, which does offer a lot of horror elements in it, with its main villain at the center of a lot of its scary moments. Despite the game being limited to using polygon models for its characters most of the time, it does a really good job of making us terrified of this silver-haired swordsman, which is why I think Sephiroth not only makes for a great video game villain, but also a great horror villain for the Final Fantasy franchise, and should be feared and respected just as much as the horror movie icons are. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like these, and most importantly, hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I do post these videos. With that said, stay beast.
Good to see you.
Good, Clown. Very good. Hold on to that hatred. Sephiroth.
"7 seconds till the end. Time enough for you, perhaps. But what will you do with it? Let's see."